We are super delighted to be back. It's 8 o'clock. This is the headline news review on Flow FM 92.7. We're live from Ilorin, Kwara State, Nigeria. And we say thank you if you're listening via terrestrial radio 92.7 megahertz. And we say thank you as well, too, for online listeners who are joining us via the website www.flowfm927.com. And of course, if you're logged on to online streaming platforms, we say hello to you and thank you for joining Flow FM 92.7. Now, the headline news review is a part of the program, part of the Flow Breakfast Show, where we analyze some of the big national headlines trending that were brought to you at 7 o'clock on the headline news. This is the review where we analyze some of those big stories. I am Adeyemi.
And I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.
Now, the beauty of the program is it gives you the opportunity to also air your views, take a position on some of these trending national stories. Do give us a call on 0807 777 9927. 0807 777 9927. But please note that you have the space of 60 seconds to pass comment on any of these national stories or anyone catching your attention. You can bring it on the platform and we can discuss them real quick. You have a minute, but also note that there will be no place for fake news. Logical fallacies will not be entertained, and of course will not insult anybody with our comment. Let's keep it very simple and straight to the point so we can accommodate more respondents. Nicholas Uwanoye is the in-house analyst this morning. Good morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Thank you for coming on the program this morning. Let's get right into our conversation. But before then, let's also state that the position to be taken shortly on these stories by Nicholas Uwanoye is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7, but solely expressed by him. Let's get right into it this morning.
Yeah, also to add to that, we're also streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook at Flow FM NG, and on YouTube at Flow FM 97. You can get in on the live action happening in the studio right now. Getting into the conversation we have this morning, President Bola Tinubu has promised Nigerians significant economic reforms in 2025, including efforts to boost food production and reduce inflation to 15%, while strengthening the nation's financial stability. Now the question is basically highlighting Tinubu's speech and how he hopes to achieve it. Despite the criticism, why is the president still insisting on some of the proposed achievement of 2025, like reducing inflation to 15%? Is it realistic? Yeah.
Sorry, recall we talked about it yesterday, and because of the position of the PDP, the opposition party, saying that they expect the New Year message to be devoid of of certain things, empty promises, so to put.
I think in that opening statement, the president anchored the basis of that optimism, which is that he's going to increase food production. You know, we have said it times without number that when you reduce scarcity in essential commodities, essentially food items, and when you reduce the scarcity of it, then you have the inflation come down. So the best way, we have a comparative advantage in Nigeria as far as arable land is concerned. We have, that is, you can grow food very well. But the problem largely is because of, lately the case of insecurity. And of course, we are largely we do rain-fed agriculture. There is no year-round agriculture. So the only few places where you have, all year agriculture is in the north, where you have more irrigational facilities, that tend to grow. Okay, food.
So down south here is more of a
rain-fed generally. Okay. Yeah, much of our irrigations, the dams are not utilized for farming in dry season. So that is why you have this recurrent, food scarcity. So the moment you have that instability, that glitch within the market, the food market and commodity market, you're going to have inflation. So what the president seems to be saying is that he's going to invest heavily in agriculture to allow for people to grow food. Then, of course, there is always an ancillary part of it, the agro-based economy too. Then that means you can export food products. You can export it to countries who need the raw materials to build things. But, again, the ancillary to that too is that you have to improve on the quality of what you export. That is, you have to add value to it. Is most of what is lacking in our agriculture, again, apart from the rain-fed, thing, is what you call the farm gate processing. You don't do a lot of process, you don't add value to the products you export. The more you do that, the more value comes into the economy, the more you export and get the necessary dollars to allow for inflation to come down. So that is the basis of the president's optimism that it could be done, and really it could be done. That is if we invest heavily in agriculture.
All right. So now, from the statement from the opposition, because it's not just the PDP making that statement, opposition parties also believing, is it that they do not have belief in agriculture, that the president, this administration, could invest heavily in agriculture?
It is not. You see, the thing is that we have a culture of making policies that are not well backed by implementation. There has always been that yearly ritual of making promises that are not fulfilled. So definitely when he comes out and say things like that, people will tend to look at it as, it's still the same old. So there is no basis for optimism, really. And of course, when you look at, the President Tinubu started off wasn't all that too cheery, considering the kind of policies he put in place, considering, the subsidy management, the floating of the naira, then of course the other issues that have, the introduction of some taxes, into the economy, revving up of the tariff, power, the tariffs, all those things contributed largely to misery, economic misery within the country. So if a man now comes at the end of the year and said 2025 will be better because of these parameters and things like that, is going to be a kind of pessimism. And that is what you are seeing. And that is what the opposition is, anchoring their critique on. So, and of course, it's one of those things that you see, when you bring an unpopular policy, then of course there will be pushback, and of course your political opponents will take advantage of that.
And still speaking on agriculture, and the president saying that his administration wants to invest heavily in agriculture. I want to ask you, what is the place of state governors? What role do they play in this, in ensuring the food security across the nation? If you look at across the 36 states of the federation, you see state governors coming up with agricultural initiatives within their own state as well too. And most times what you hear is distribution of tractors and all of these things. Don't we have developed, past the era of distributing tractors? Or what other, initiative can they add to ensure that, there's food production from virtually every state?
Actually, if things were properly done, the president shouldn't even be talking about agriculture. Shouldn't. What the president should be concerned about is that aspect where you have to export our goods, where how we have to export all these produces that come from the states. Ordinarily, state government and local government are supposed, it's a low-hanging fruit for sake of crying out loud. These are things they have land, they have vast lands. They could implement that in making for agricultural-based economy in their states. I often go back to this Anambra example. Anambra has a very that is between it and Lagos. I don't know which is smaller, but do you know that Anambra has
Anambra is smaller?
Yeah, Anambra is smaller.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Now, do you know that Anambra rice is one of the best you have in terms of quantum and quality? Yeah. In fact, as at was it before 2015? There was an expo in Egypt where Anambra rice came third as some of the best rice that you have in the continent. And when you have in terms of processing too, you equally have that too happening. You have a lot of processing, what is it called? You have a lot of processing industries in agriculture. In fact, there is this thing that I am yet to, there's been a kind of ding-dong kind of, this lake rice that lake rice. I don't know if you are aware of lake rice. I learned reliably that,
sorry to butt you. Anambra appears to be larger than Lagos by land area. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, in terms of size. Size. I don't know. I don't know, but Anambra I know they are the two.
Anambra is larger.
Anambra is larger. Okay. So now, then when you compare it to other states, where you have larger land masses, they are doing better in agriculture. And this was because there was a lot of the state government at that time were plowing in resources into allowing farmers to grow rice, grow all these vegetables for export. At that time, I think under Obiano, there was this huge revenue in dollars from export of ugu and some of these local vegetables. Is it about $5 million US, in 1 year? I recall that.
There's also that from the south region. There was this Afang leaf, the Afang leaf.
Exactly.
I read a report like that, yeah.
But do you know that at some point, most of the yam that you have in Ghana were from Ekiti State? Ekiti used to be a big hub for yam, that particular yam in Ekiti. So, but all these things have gone down. I knew all these things when I was covering agriculture and industry. There's this organization where you get data from all these food hubs, from my 12 in Lagos State. So I was able to key into some of these. So you see a lot of things that states could do on their own, and then you have the federal government coming at that, point where they need to export it to larger markets. Explore all those treaties that we've signed with the US, with the EU, so many of them. In fact, at some point, there was this time when EPA, that is Economic Partnership Agreement with EU, when we had it with EU, where they were looking for organic, we had more than enough opportunity to key into that market. But unfortunately, this lack of policy push from both the state and the federal denied us of that. Ghana was doing fantastically well, especially in the cocoa area, in that agreement. They were making good money from it. So this is something I think that at this point we don't have any other option but to look inwards and see how we can get the maximum benefit from agriculture.
Okay. Well, very closely related to, and this is also coming from the PDP. They're urging President Tinubu to recover 25 trillion naira stolen by APC leaders. Is that something,
You see, I have gone way past talking about money being stolen, and I'll tell you the reason why. It's not as if it's okay when you take public money and things like that. There was a training program that I attended in 2005. It was anchored by one of, I think the director of YFM. YFM is a financial, West African. Is it central bank or banking institution kind of? You see, it's not about just throwing figures randomly. It's about understanding what it means to the economy. You don't just throw figures. Where was the money stolen from? I'm not saying that monies are not being stolen, but you see, there is this when you throw figures randomly like that, people are inured. They don't get the effect of what you are talking about. Where is the money from? Where is it stolen from? And things like that. You understand? So, you see, we need to really understand, put context to some of these issues, some of these figures that have been bandied around, so that we properly understand. So I have lost count of several times that the opposition probably has said so money was stolen. How was it stolen? Are you just reading off budgetary allocations that we are not probably cash backed? Then of course, I would have preferred a situation where we look at all those old issues. All those old, like the case of. Is it the accountant general case that has still been lingering? These are some of these that you can put a face to. Yeah, so money was stolen here. What have you done about it? Where is the case right now? Why is the man on bail when you have a Emefiele, in detention and multiple charges, surrounding him and things like that. So there is a need for conciseness both at the level of the federal government itself and the opposition themselves. When they make these allegations, I need it to be concretely spelled out, not just throw figures at people and say they have stolen so amount of money. Nigerians are no longer, with all this data, all this citizen journalism and things like that, people are already tired of all those kind of things. You need something very concrete people can really sink their teeth into.
All right, let's say it's just something still very, very close as well, but on a different ground this time. It's still part of the New Year celebrations now. Some governors, visited the president in his Ikoyi residence, and then he did say to them that there are no plans to take the local governments away from them. Is that not some, is that the true nature of what the president thinks? Or from that Supreme Court ruling is a different drift from what the president is saying from what the Supreme Court, the judgment the Supreme Court gave.
No, actually, I saw the caption on Daily Independent this morning, which is that the Supreme Court ruling is not meant to strip them of their powers. So what the president is trying to do is to try to make them understand that the mere fact that you have an autonomy, local government autonomy, does not mean you don't have some powers. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're weak. All it's simply saying is that, there are ways you can control the local government. Actually, there are ways you can control it as the state governor. But you see, willy-nilly, just from with a drop of the hat, you just suspend the chairman, scrap a duly elected office. That is uncalled for. That is unconstitutional. That is what I think the president is trying to say. And what the president is trying to equally add to, that is, I'm just assuming that this is what the president is trying to say, is to let them understand that you need to allow these tiers to breathe. These 2 tiers within the state to breathe very well, so that development can get to the grassroots. You understand? So you see, when you are at the center, you don't see what is happening down there. You are only focused on your priorities. Getting the state functionaries working, but there are at the local level where there is the grassroots, you are not doing much. So the only people who are fit, who can do that, who can really look at what is happening in the day-to-day life of the average man on the street, is the local government. And that is what I think Tinubu is trying to say. So honestly, I think the governors should listen to him. Yesterday we were talking about what happened in Edo State, and probably that what you are seeing happening there, might just be an opening gambit by the governors. And today we have this the president talking about that same matter. So that tells you that he's trying to to get them on board as to what the Supreme Court has said and what the Constitution actually says.
All right. Well, let's move away from that on to this conversation. We've had the Bauchi state governor say they want to show the presidency the true colors, and the Kano government is also saying, is also rejecting Tinubu's tax reform bills and has described it as ill-timed, the introduction of the president's tax reform bills, and is rejecting it on all ramifications, saying it's going to do more harm than good to the people of Kano State.
Well, like we rightly said, like we said yesterday, that definitely you are going to have a lot of problems with people who believe that the only way a state can be viable is getting money from the center. VAT sharing, or oil money receipts and things like that. You're going to have a lot of pushback from people who are traditionally inclined about how to get money to run their state. So, and like we also said too, that the tax is essentially about enterprise, and enterprise is not easy. It's about creativity. It's about hard work. So in a situation where you have the traditional way of looking at things vis-a-vis a new reform, there will always be pushback. Now going to what the Kano State governor said, it is not unusual for people to push back at policies, But you see, what I have to say is this: there is no right time for a policy implementation. There is no right time. If you do it a million years from now, you are still going to have pushbacks. That is if we continue to run this kind of system and Nigeria is still in the existence at that time. You understand? You are still going to have pushbacks. You are going to have resistance from people, who feel that this is inauspicious at this time to bring about this kind of policy. No, you always have things like that. But you see, I believe that instead of just mountain mantra, because some of you have agreed that this thing is not going to work, I think there should be more engagement. You should say exactly how, that policy will affect your state. You understand? Is it in the area of creating, the consumer tax? Is it in the area of just be specific about how that thing has a problem? Because mostly they have been vague. And for, to the credit of the federal government, they have been doing a lot of explanation, on what the bill is all about, what the state stand to gain. So I need the state governors too to tell me, okay, this is the state of our economy. This is what we gain every year. This is what and this is how this tax is going to take sectors away from us. You see, it speaks to that lack of data in most states. Honestly, that is what you are saying now. Because when you go to an average state and ask for certain data on the number of production that happens in the state, it's practically absent. You don't have it. Why? Because the government of the day have not been concerned about looking at making concise data available for people who want to invest. Now you now have a tax that appears to threaten that kind of practice, that threatens that kind of way of doing things. That's why you're having all these pockets of resistance here and there. So this is my take. I want a more educated opposition. You understand? You don't just give me something off the hat and you think I'll just swallow it. No.
All right, interesting. Thank you, Nicholas. Because of time, let's move on to another story. This time we'll focus on the home front, which is the Harmony States, Kwara. Because it's going to be the review of the year 2024, and because under His Excellency Governor of the state, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak. Let's kick off with what are some of the pluses that you can observe in the year 2024 that is administration. Before we go to the heart of the conversation, which is the PDP criticizing the Kwara governor's policies, saying that it's impoverished the people more, taking businesses out and destroyed a lot of homes and a lot of businesses. Let's take a look. Let's start from the plus.
Number one, in terms of infrastructure development, I'll score him excellently well. If you're traveling, like I tell you, I used to travel a lot. When you look at states, that were created at the same time, with Kwara State, before the advent of Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, you see a lot of development. When you go to the state capitals, you are wowed. Go to Osun State, Osogbo, go to Mina. So in fact, there was a time I made I made a comparison between Osogbo that was created just how many years ago and Ilorin, and there was a lot of opera on Facebook, because this was a long time ago before. But now, when you come to Ilorin now, you hardly recognize Ilorin. You understand? You have to give him that. You have to give him in terms of infrastructure development. Though there were some errors, teething problem, especially with the tanker bridge thing. You understand? And I am not going to fault him entirely on that, because there were a lot of pluses that could be taken away from that too. But I hope we have time. I will talk about it, because a lot of they are trying to, a lot of opposition are trying to make a meal out of it. But I keep on telling them that look, you have to look at the intention behind that plan and why it appears as if there are glitches here and there. You understand? So that is perhaps is a matter for another day. But that's when you talk of infrastructure development, then you now talk of an expansive development processes, activities happening, expansive in that is in the area. That is what I mean by an expansive is that it takes every region, every part of the state into consideration. There is hardly anywhere you go in Kwara you will not see the hand of the governor, and I'm saying this, and I need people to challenge me on that. You understand? So he has touched on various places. I make this example of Foko. The only primary school, the only renovation you have there was done, in constant. That is a suburb. That is UBEC built a school, a primary school there. The building is there. So, and you see the year he built it was, I think it was the first year, it was in his first term that he did that. So, for a place that abandoned, to have the presence of the state government there, it says a lot. You understand? So that is a big plus for him. Then in terms of youth empowerment, now sports, the man has done fantastically. You need to see the kind of infrastructure he's putting in place at the stadium. It is wonderful. It is big. And when you look at the funding in sports, I think Kwara State is about the only state that spends more in sports than any other place that I know. I could be challenged on that, but I don't. But I know he's been doing a lot. When you talk of sectoral spending, sports is fourth, and sports is the biggest employer of youth energy, worldwide. So for a governor to be doing that kind of a thing, the only minus that I see is that he's not talking enough about some of these things. That's why it appears as if you don't see anything. But by and large, in the areas of infrastructure, youth development, gender equity and things like that, the man has been doing well. He's been doing well.
All right, now let's take it up on the reaction of the PDP criticizing, the governor saying that there's real concerns over the challenges faced by Kwarans in 2024, attributing many of these difficulties to the policies of the governor. As a journalist, I'm pointing to some of these policies that has had this adverse or a negative effect on the people.
In law, there is this thing you call forum shopping. A situation where a lawyer looks for a favorable court to go and put, a plaintiff, that is what PDP is doing, and I'm not impressed really, because you see, you are just capitalizing on the general. There will always be fallout when you have a new policy. That is definite. Now, whether it is plus or minus is a different thing entirely. Now, I'm not saying that there are no issues with what, some of these policies that the governor has put in place. Like in the area of, like when you have infrastructure, definitely houses will go. Definitely businesses will be affected. Where I fault the governor is that there is not enough talking. Yes, with due respect to, what the number one spokesman of the governor, Ajakai, has been doing. I think the governor himself has to do more talking. Because it is okay. It sends the proper signal to people. It inspires confidence in people when they see their governor talking, when they see him on TV, when they see him on radio, when they see him on newspaper granting interviews. It further gives assurances and confidence to people. So that's my initial take on what the PDP has said.
All right, let's take this reaction. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, please try and connect back if you can. The number is 0807 777 9927. Let's take a look at the fiscal plan for the year 2025 as put to the State House of Assembly. The governor proposed a budget of 540 billion naira, and a breakdown of it says about the capital expenditure will take about 62.1% of that fiscal plan, and then recurrent expenditure will take 39.7%. A further breakdown of it, you see social sector getting to the 2.5%, health, education and health getting 16%. That's education is getting 16%, health is getting 10%. Now, I read from that part that the governor says, the reason is he wants to complete some of these ongoing projects and then improve the standard of living for the people. How much more? 16% again and 10% for health. What's your reaction? Isn't it too on the low side for the states?
Well, when you compared to what you have at the federal level, I think it's quite impressive, really. Yeah, but it is not enough. Yeah, let us be clear about that. It is not enough, because what UN recommends is it 20 between? Yeah, so that is still falls far short of what is required. But I will give him, okay, that's an average mark. Thereabout, for then considering the fact that, there are lots of competing sectors. You understand? There are lots of competing sectors, within the state that the governor has to focus on. Now, while I was earlier, I said he touched on a lot of places. There is a large spread of, that is his policies and infrastructure development. Is widely spread. Now, most of these are not completed. That is what he is saying. Like in my area in Egbejila, for instance, there is a road that connects Asadam, from Asadam to Egbejila. That axis, the road is half done. You understand? So we are expecting that should be done this year. And you have pockets of that around. So definitely you are going to have, more consideration for all those places, because you see, when you build infrastructure, you tend to open up spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you open up spaces, then you can charge rent. Then you can open up those places. When you open up all those new areas, then buildings will come there. Then you can tax them and make more money and plow it into social sector. You understand? So that is this is my thinking. This is what I think the governor is trying to do.
All right, there's a whole lot to discuss about. Of course, again, the the urban renewal, projects and all of this.
Yeah.
We want to see the effectiveness of these, how far they've gone. But because of time, we just need to just drop it here. Hopefully we'll pick it up tomorrow morning again. Thank you, Nicholas, for coming. The view expressed on the program and any of these, stories is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7 or the staff therein, but are solely expressed by the analyst, Nicholas Onwaronoye. Thank you for your time, and of course, thank you for always, willing to share from your wealth of knowledge and experience. My name is Adeyemi.
I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.